Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew DeSantis,
And I'm Kaylie Shapiro.
and welcome to another episode of NYRA Bets Road to the Kentucky Derby.
And the Kentucky Oaks.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Road to the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks here on NYRA Bets YouTube. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button today to get all of our great content leading up to the Kentucky Derby. Listen, folks, it's too much to list it all out. Rest assured, this is your one-stop shop for everything having to do with the Derby, the Triple Crown, and all the races in between now and the Breeders' Cup. So make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. Kaylie, the preps are over. We're not
Yep.
predicting any races. We're talking about this pretty much so finalized fields for the Derby and Oaks. You've already been diving in to the pedigrees. I've been diving into Thoroughgraph. Do I know what I'm looking at? Maybe, maybe not. But we're having a lot of fun doing it. This is a great time of year.
Yes, absolutely. This is the most exciting time of the year for sure. Next few weeks, it's going to be a lot of fun to see these horses hit the track at Churchill as well and to see everything start to become real. So I'm very excited.
Absolutely. And we're so excited. We're leaving for Kentucky. We're actually going
Yeah.
down to Kentucky on Thursday. We're going to be there through the following Friday. We're going to be at Keeneland some of those days for the racing, but also to see some of these horses working in the morning that are at Keeneland. We're going to be at Churchill Downs. So we're going to be getting content. We're going to be visiting some of the farms, seeing some of the great past Derby and Oaks winners, and also showing some of the sires of prominent horses running in this year's Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. So that's going to be a lot of fun going down to the Bluegrass State to capture all that great content for NYRA Bets.
Yeah, that's going to be so much fun. I guess you could say we probably have content coming from every angle at which
Yes.
you can look at the Derby. And then also, I'm really excited to talk about some racing at Keeneland, even this Friday. Some big
Oh,
racing going on, just FYI, versus Tarifa. So I'm very excited for that. And obviously, lots of other great racing. So next 2 weeks are going to be pretty jam packed. A lot of
they
fun.
absolutely are. But listen, speaking of jam packed, we have a jam packed field of 20 for the Kentucky Derby. What Kaylie and I are going to do this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the fields as they stand right now. There's news coming out all the time about who's in, who's out, who's riding who, this sort of thing. So, listen, there's a lot of information that's going on. If you watch this 48 hours from the time we record it, hey, maybe something's changed. But as of Tuesday night, this is kind of the most up to date information we have. Then you and I are going to share our respective Derby and Oaks lists. And we're going to, I'm going to dip my toe into the Oaks list. You're going to dip your toe into the Derby list. We're going to see where we differ, see where we overlap, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
let's dive into the current field of the Kentucky Derby. Here are the 20 that are in the starting gate right now. You've seen a lot of movement over the last couple of days. A couple of horses have decided opting out of the race. The most recent one is River Thames for trainer Todd Pletcher. That horse is going to be pointing towards the Preakness. With that horse's defection from the race, that means that Built is eligible to be in the field of 20. I think there's a lot of questions about whether he goes. The ownership group, even as of today, said to be determined. I think that horse is most likely pointed to the Pat Day Mile. And if that's the case, Neo Equos, the horse from Safi Joseph Jr., who finished third, if I'm not mistaken, in the Florida Derby, is going to be the next one up. Safi has said if he is in the field of 20 by the time they draw, he's absolutely going to that race. And then there's still two more spots to Baeza, Render Judgment, Baeza are the next two in. So a lot of moving parts here, but exciting to see some of these horses now getting a chance to potentially run in this race. Grande, Matticat Road, we're on the outside looking in, now in the field.
Definitely, and I don't want really any of my favorites to scratch out of the race or to announce that, they're not going anymore, but it's definitely feeling like the Baeza countdown for me. Each time that a horse comes off, I'm really rooting for that horse to get in, so that should be interesting. I wonder if Kenny McPeak would send Render Judgment, because like you
Yeah.
said, I'm sure there's going to be at least one or two after Built, so that will be really interesting, but I absolutely love, how the field's looking for the Derby. There's lots of great horses in here. You can kind of figure out the pace dynamics already. Definitely, we don't have post positions, but there's lots to dig into with this field, and pretty jam-packed and competitive as well. So
you're absolutely right. It's a great point about the pace dynamics already. Obviously, if a horse like Neo Equos draws in, that would be another speed horse in this race. You have a horse like American Promise for D. Wayne Lucas, who's pretty fast. East Avenue, we saw try to go gate to wire in that bluegrass, and I think we both think he's probably best up on the lead at this point. And then obviously you have the 3 Baffert horses, Matticat Road, Rodriguez, and Citizen Bull, and all of them are best when they're up front. So, obviously there could be a lot of speed in this race, and that sets up for your Sandmans, your Sovereignties, your Journalisms, your Tiz-tastics, those horses that come from off the pace. So it could be a repeat of what we've seen the last few years with that front end speed maybe burning itself up and horses sitting mid-pack and a little further back being able to make a run.
Definitely, and it'll be interesting to think of who maybe can change up their dynamics going in, knowing that. I mean, there's a few obviously that are best served being up on the lead and really can only win or run their best race that way, like East Avenue, for example. But Matticat Road, he broke his maiden rating, so I do wonder what they're going to do with him, because I don't think that he's going to send them all to the front, but who knows, maybe he does. I don't know. I was watching a video where he kind of alluded to it. It was an older video, like from a month ago, but he was saying how sometimes you can't really change up the dynamics when you have 2 horses going head to head, so it could be very well a case where he sends 2 of them there as well. So definitely be very interesting. And Neo Equus definitely adds another layer drawing into the race. He's a horse that does well up on the lead as well. So
yeah, going to be a lot of fun. And the other big news to drop is about the jockeys. Obviously, we saw news that Irad Ortiz Jr. is going to be taking over the ride for Publisher. River Thames had been without a rider, which was a little bit of a giveaway that he was probably not going to be running in the race. Grande is going to be ridden by John Velasquez. And the big question mark is, where does Flavien Prat end up? The reigning Eclipse Award winning jockey. I think there's no list in this country that's more than 2 deep that doesn't have Flavien Prat as one of the top 2 jockeys. It's, you can flip a coin. Is it Irad? Is it Flavien? I mean, those 2 are kind of at the top of their game right now in their careers and in terms of how they're riding. Flavien has a remarkable record at the Kentucky Derby as well. His horses always hit the board. And so it is remarkable to see how well he's ridden at the Kentucky Derby. He currently doesn't have a mount. Well, there's only a couple of horses that aren't accounted for. East Avenue, it's a little bit of a question mark. Tyler Gaffalione had been riding that horse. Obviously, he broke his ankle a couple weeks ago. He's out for a few months. Luan Machado rode him in that bluegrass. And Luan, listen, Brendan Walsh uses Luan a lot at Turfway Park. So those 2 have a relationship, but it's hard to think he's going into the Kentucky Derby with Machado up on the mount with the opportunity to go to somebody like Flavien Prat, who he also has a relationship with, riding for Brendan Walsh, sometimes riding for Godolphin. So it's going to be interesting to see where Flavien ends up. And yeah, it's just going to be fascinating to see where maybe the best jockey in the country right now is going to end up riding for the Kentucky Derby.
yeah, my gut instinct would probably go to East Avenue, but obviously that's not a guarantee. So it is interesting to think of who he could end up on. I mean, I know there's no shot he would end up on like one of the Japanese horses coming, but who knows? Maybe Luxor Cafe. I mean, I don't know. I doubt that, but it's interesting. I definitely think maybe East Avenue. That would make a lot of sense, and I feel like that would be pretty good too. I think that horse, I'm not saying he maybe I think he went too fast last time. I don't really know if he had to go as fast as he did. So maybe he'll be better served with another jockey. I don't know, but we'll definitely see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting you bring up about the international runners and Meyer, Daytona, Luxor Cafe. Luxor Cafe has Christophe Lemaire. It's likely that Lemaire comes over for that now. Not guaranteed, but he came over a few years ago for Derma Sotogake. So he's got some experience riding in the Kentucky Derby. But you never know with those international riders and international commitments and things like that. The speculation, I think, is that I'm not trying to generate the speculation by any stretch, but I do think there's at least a line of thinking that Michael McCarthy, the trainer of journalism, who is everyone's number 1 Kentucky Derby contender, Michael McCarthy has a relationship with Flavian Pratt from all the Flavian's years riding in California. Now, Umberto Rispoli, he is a great turf jockey, particularly out in California. He is not someone who inspires a huge amount of confidence all the time in these big dirt races. We've even had, our mutual friend Ryan Anderson and us have talked about this on camera and off sometimes about Rispoli and some of the struggles that he can have in certain races. We saw it in the Santa Anita Derby where he kind of got journalism into trouble in a 5-horse field. I don't think Michael McCarthy would have made a change. You kind of dance with the one that brung you, and as the old expression would be, you dance with the jockey that got you to this point, and you wouldn't make that 23rd hour change. But it certainly is tempting when the best jockey in the world is sitting out there without a mount.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he'll probably end up sticking with who got him there. He strikes me as that type of person, and I feel like it's also less of a slap of in the face to put a new jockey on a horse that's been ridden by probably multiple jockeys to get to that point, like East Avenue has.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
I feel like that can make more sense, but definitely interesting. I mean, it would be pretty cool if Flavian did end up on a horse like journalism, but I
Yeah.
don't really think it matters too much, the difference. I think that horse is going to carry whoever it is through the race, but definitely
There's
see.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few horses throughout, both of our lives that we've seen that just carry whoever's on their back to victory, one way or the other. It's about the horse more than anything else. Although in the Kentucky Derby, obviously, it really matters what sort of ride you end up getting.
Definitely.
But listen, let's transition from the current field of 20 to the current field of potentially 14 runners in the Kentucky Oaks. A lot of this field is set, but there have been 2 defections recently that have changed things up. Muhima, it was announced, is out. Is going to be skipping the Kentucky Oaks. As a result, Anna's Promise drew into the field. And then news just came out today that Cherise DeVoe's horse, Ahava, the half Devava, the grade 1 winning sprinter, who finished second in the Fairground Oaks to Good Cheer, and actually kind of was one of the closer horses to Good Cheer throughout her career, is going to also be skipping the Kentucky Oaks. That potentially brings in Bob Baffert's Silent Law, who finished second to Tenma in the Santa Anita Oaks. That's still waiting confirmation whether Baffert will send that horse there, but this is your field of 14, and it's a really good field. I'll be honest, you can go 9-10 deep, I feel like, and find some horses that could present some upset choices.
For sure. And I'd imagine that Baffert's probably just going to send Tenma, that Silent Law. I think they were really experimenting with her in that race. Yeah. And I don't think that she's going to be able to get that Oaks distance, or maybe not ready for it. But it is interesting to see that. I mean, we know Muhima bled last time, so it makes sense that she drew out of the race. And Ahava, I mean, is kind of a big out. I was hoping, I'm glad that they're taking their time with the horse, because I think that she's going to develop into a really nice filly, but I was looking forward to her being in the field. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, a lot of these horses, you can see how they're working. Bless the Broken in particular is working exceptionally leading up to the Oaks. She just put in a really strong work at Keeneland that definitely caught my eye, and a few other ones. So it's interesting to see the different tactics. But yeah, definitely the top 2 that you have there, Quietside and Good Cheer, reign supreme over the field. But it'll be interesting as we get closer to start picking out those other horses that could be competitive. And we definitely have started doing that already. So
yeah. It is. And there's horses like Fondly and Drexel Hill who haven't run in a minute, who I think are kind of being forgotten about a little bit. And that's going to be interesting to see how those horses kind of continue to develop and how they're looking, how they're working out, hearing from the connections, seeing them in the mornings, etc. And, listen, I know it's not the same as having a field of 20, but listen, even if Silent Law doesn't go, and I agree, that horse looked pretty leg weary going 2 turns. And that was, we should say, the horse's first return to action since last year. So it had been a little while since she ran. This would be second back. She'd probably be a little healthier, but I agree. She's probably more of a sprinter, a 7 furlong type of runner. But nevertheless, you still have, let's say, a field of 13 in this. You could still get into trouble depending on, hey, if Good Cheer draws 13, if Quietside draws 1, you could still have post position things that all of a sudden you go, well, now wait a second. I got to look at this again because now maybe the top two are in disadvantageous post positions. And now suddenly you look at a horse like a Tenma or a 5G, depending on the pace scenario. And you start looking at a horse like Bless the Broken, like you mentioned. Suddenly some of these other horses start to make maybe a little bit more sense to try to beat the presumptive favorites.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a few in here that are going to be trying things that they've never tried before,
Yeah.
facing larger fields than they've ever faced before, maybe dealing with a pace that's a little faster than they've ever had to deal with before.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fillies in here that I think need the lead in order to either get the distance or that are going to be most dangerous up on the lead. I think there's about 2 or 3 of them in here that kind of need that
Yeah.
position. So it'll be interesting to see how they all draw, give a better sense. But yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of changing up dynamics with a few of them. You have a horse like Tenma that's never even faced anyone in this field or anyone in common with
Right.
anyone that's faced. So that's a big question mark. So yeah, very interesting.
That's a great point about the California runners. It's not so much that they haven't even faced anybody in the field. They haven't even faced anybody who's faced anybody in the field. Like, it really is something where out there, they're in their own little world. And it's so hard to get a sense sometimes, both for the Colts and for the Phillies, just how good are these horses because they're running against each other all the time. And you see that. But you will see horses bounce between Fairgrounds and Oaklawn and Gulfstream Park and up here to Aqueduct and Churchill, and Keeneland and things like that. And so, some of these other fillies and Colts that you've seen them run against each other and you go, okay, I think that one's better than that one. Oh, I remember that race. That one was better than that one, etc. And so you can kind of get this sense of where they fall. But those California horses, particularly with the big speed figures for the boys, sometimes you just go, man, I don't know how good these horses are. I don't know how good this field is. So that's what makes it so challenging is bringing in that California factor and Tenma in particular, who I know you have some thoughts on that we'll wait for a little bit later when we share our top 10 list. But
yeah, her even more
yeah.
so with her than the boys, because at least a lot of them have faced each other.
Yeah.
Some of the, or at least they've had more to face out in California, like Citizen Bull Rodriguez journalism. I mean, and then Baeza you throw into the mix now too. A lot of them. Tenma, she's always been thrown up against like fillies that Baffert's experimenting with, or this one that so we don't really know, but we'll get to that. But
and like Vodka with a Twist is kind of like the main competition she's had, and it's like, okay, I don't know how good that filly is, and so well, let's go. Listen, this whole time we've been doing this, I've been sharing my Derby top 10. You've been sharing your Oaks top 10. But you've been taking notes. You've been watching these Derby preps. I've been taking notes. I've been watching these Oaks preps. So listen, we're going to share our respective Derby and Oaks top 10 lists. Let's start with the boys and talk about our top 10. And Kaylie, I will let you do the honors. I think the big difference between the two of us, there's kind of two horses that really stand out to me that make a big difference. One is you're much higher on American Promise than I am for D. Wayne Lucas. That's the horse that won the Virginia Derby. And I think you and I have different opinions on Rodriguez. I have him at 10. You have him at 3. Maybe start with a horse like American Promise because we can talk about journalism and sovereignty and Sandman. And we've talked a lot about them already. They're great horses. But that's a horse that you kind of have a strong opinion about that's a little bit different from anybody that's on my list.
Yeah, I saw a list today. It was comparing all the different Derby preps and comparing which ones looked the best on sheets. And I was looking into some stuff with that. And some of them, a lot of American Promises races have come up very strong. And also, I think that he's a horse that if he's out up front, that he's very dangerous. But I also believe that he can, it's not the end of the world if he doesn't get the lead either, but he's going to be forwardly placed. He's going to be a pace presence. But a big difference between him and a lot of other speeds is that I truly believe that he can sustain his run and he can also face pressure as well. I think that he's been running up against big fields ever since he even first started running. He's been up against some competitive horses, some of the toughest fields out of all of these. And I think that it's even a positive that D. Wayne Lucas skipped the Lexington and decided to just, go straight to the Derby. I know that he's super aggressive with racing his horses, and that's not, out of the question that that horse was supposed to go to Lexington, but
Yeah.
he's been silently just putting in bullet work after bullet work. And I
Yep.
have a feeling that he might play a bigger role come Derby Day than a lot of these others. And I also think that you're going to be able to get a pretty big price on him as well, using him and obviously deeper exotic bets and stuff like that. You can play around with him a
Yeah.
little bit, but I think that he's going to play a bigger role than people are thinking, honestly.
It's interesting. I brought this point up with regards to Fondley and Drexel Hill, horses that we haven't seen in a little bit that might be overlooked in the Oaks field. You could say the same thing for American Promise. He ran that Virginia Derby, a 50-point prep race. That was a new prep race that had never really been used on the dirt before. The Virginia Derby traditionally has been on the turf, but they moved it to the dirt and moved it to the spring. It was that kind of unusual one-turn, 9-furlong race. And he looked amazing that day. And he's a big, strong horse, sired by Justify, out of a Tappan mare. So you got to love the pedigree in terms of distance and being able to handle the 1.25 miles at the Kentucky Derby. D. Wayne, like you said, kind of giving a little bit more time off, not running him quite as much in that Lexington. Certainly a horse that, like you said, is going to be probably part of that early pace scenario, may not need the lead, but is a big, strong horse that likes to get up there and do his best work kind of closer to the front at the very least. Another horse that's going to be closer to the front is Rodriguez, who won the Wood Memorial up here. We saw him up close and in person. He's an impressive specimen. He's a nice-looking horse. Reminded you and I both said in the paddock, reminded us a little bit of Zandon in terms of just his look. A horse you and I both loved. I'll still never forget seeing Zandon walk into the paddock at the Pennsylvania Derby and thinking, I don't know if I've ever seen a more beautiful horse in my life. But Rodriguez is a horse that, again, does his best work up front. And if he can get to the lead, depending on the post position and things like that, he could be dangerous. I guess I'm less bullish on his chances of doing that and not being pressured the whole 1.25 miles, unlike in the Wood Memorial when he really kind of was able to get things done up front on his own. He's a totally different horse up on the front end, so maybe just getting to the lead, no matter what the fractions are, is all that matters for him.
Yeah, and I do wonder though, like who else in this field, like who do you think is obviously it's going to depend on how they draw, but I am trying to think of who's, faster than him in this field. Obviously East Avenue is really fast and he's going to go for the lead, but we don't know how he draws. I think this horse is more competitive, than East Avenue is if East Avenue gets the lead. Like this horse can sustain his run. He was so dominant that day in the Wood Memorial. Obviously seeing him up close, I started liking him even more. And I think that he's a lot faster than anyone ever thought going into it. You could have kind of sussed that out, but then he really backed it with his performance in the Wood Memorial. And I think if he draws well and he gets the lead, I think he can be very dangerous. So that's why I included him. I mean, I do wonder if they're going to send Citizen Bull. That's a big question.
Right.
And that could kind of mess up this horse a little bit because Citizen Bull is going to have to go to the lead. I mean, and then I think that if Madikit Road goes, I think they're going to rate him. I mean, if it's not a Baffert horse that this horse is competing with to get the lead, to get to the lead, I do wonder if he draws favorably, who's his biggest threat? Who do you think?
I think it's a good question. I think certainly you brought up East Avenue with the blinkers. There's going to be some intentionality there to try to get to the front. I think you could look at a horse like if Neo Equus does draw in, certainly that horse kind of only really has one way to go, which is to just send full. You never know about the international runners. A horse like Admire Daytona. I remember a few years ago, the Rich Strike year, Summer is Tomorrow, basically quarter horsed it out of the gate. And it was just like, we're getting to the lead and setting insane fractions. And then it led to an epic pace meltdown. And so, you just never know how that early dynamic plays out. And then you have a horse like American Promise, who does do his best work up front. And you have other horses, like you mentioned, Citizen Bull. If he ends up going, obviously really only has one way to win. And we've seen Rodriguez have to rate off of Citizen Bull, and that's not really his game. Rodriguez's game is also to go straight to the front. So, listen, if he can get to the front, he's dangerous. It's just a matter of getting to the front. Like you said, the post positions are going to matter a lot in that regard.
Definitely. And I feel like you're very strong on, your top 5. If you notice, a lot of those horses, they come from behind or they come from mid-pack as well. So that definitely Rodriguez was the one that I wanted to include if I was gonna, because I see it playing out similarly as as you. So he
Yeah.
was really the only horse I wanted to rate so high. That's, one of the speed horses, and that's why he's so high on my list there.
Yeah. But listen, let's talk about the horse that we have jointly number one for a little bit,
Yeah.
because you don't want to bury the lead. Journalism is an outstanding horse, and it is hard to get a full understanding of how good he is because of the short field sizes he's faced, admittedly. And, because he's out in California, he's run against Citizen Bull, and he's run against Barnes, and he's run against Rodriguez, and he's run against some of these other horses, and he's beaten everyone that he's gone against since breaking his maiden in his second start. He also is the only horse to be coming into this race with consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures. And, listen, as long as he gets the right trip, he looks like a monster. I mean, physically, he just looks huge. And you're a pedigree. You know more about pedigree than I do. But from a pedigree standpoint, curling up top out of an Uncle Mo mare, I mean, this is a horse that is bred for 1.25 miles if you've ever seen it.
Yeah, he's honestly like his pedigree is like a dream for the Derby, and also, I mean, his record and his running style. So
Yeah.
I think that's why we both have him number one. I think that there's a lot of strength coming from California. It actually even flatters this horse that
Yeah.
Baeza, who I think is going to end up being a really, really nice horse. I don't know if it's in the Derby or maybe the Preakness. Who knows what happens?
Yeah.
But I think that horse is going to make some noise this year. And I think it flatter journalism even more that it wasn't just, a Baffert that he beat that got tired up on the front end. He beat another
Right.
legitimate horse coming from pretty sure off the pace that day as well. So that definitely stuck out to me and even solidified more that I should have him up on the top of my list. But yeah, I think that it should set up very nice for him in the Derby. Honestly, anything can happen, but he is the one that I'm most impressed with, and he's running crazy figures just, especially in the last two races. So
yeah, 108, 102 back to back, and had legitimate trouble in that Santa Anita Derby. Like I said, was kind of boxed in. Baeza got about a 5-6 length jump on him basically, and he had to track that horse down in the stretch and was able to do it. The horse that you have second, I have third. The splitting hairs maybe a little bit there. We both are very, very high on as a horse. I'll let you talk a little bit more about. And that's because he's trained by Bill Mott, the Hall of Famer. Godolphin. They've been searching for that elusive Kentucky Derby victory. Sovereignty might be their best chance to date of getting that Kentucky Derby. He came up just a little short in the Florida Derby, won the Fountain of Youth before that. Most importantly, won the Street Sense at Churchill Downs last year. So he's got a win going 2 turns on the dirt under the Twin Spires. Nobody else can say that in the field. So he's a nice one, Kaylie.
Yes, and honestly, I think that probably come Derby week, I'm going to end up switching these two when we're talking about which one I'm going to bet and which one, my head as well, though, because Sovereignty, I still really like him. Nothing turned me off in his last start, finishing second. He got 2 unfortunate setups and pace setups for his running style in both of those races. And I think that he's just going to keep getting better with every race. And I think that they have a really good shot, Godolphin, at winning the Derby this year. I think that this horse is going to be very dangerous. And I know that you should get a pretty decent price with the presence of journalism if you think about it. I mean, at 4-1, this horse is like, or even 3-1, 4-1, this horse is like a dream bet for me come Derby day at those odds.
I would agree. I mean, he's certainly a very attractive bet at those prices. That's the great thing about the Derby is you usually get a really good price on like the 3rd or 4th choice in a field, even sometimes the 2nd choice in a field. And yeah, he's really good. We should mention that last time out, and we both like Manny Franco quite a bit as a jockey, but we should note Manny Franco was aboard that day. The first time he's ever ridden that horse. Regular jockey Junior Alvarado was out that day with a fractured scapula. Junior will be back aboard for the Kentucky Derby. Not saying Manny had anything to do with that horse getting beat, but just having a new jockey, especially on a horse that's a closer, is something that I just always think is difficult for the jockey a lot of times. Just knowing when to time that run, having never been on that horse before. You don't know what you have under you necessarily, having never been on that horse before. So you don't know, do I need to ask this horse before we get to the turn, during the turn, at the top of the stretch? When do I really need to ask, as opposed to a jockey like Junior, who's not only been riding this horse every race, but has been riding this horse in the mornings since Saratoga
Mhm.
because he told our colleague Darwin Vizcaya this was the best horse Bill Mott had in the barn. And
And
so,
yeah, and
that means something.
yeah, exactly. And that's Mott's go-to guy. So
Right.
obviously, I think teaming back up with his horse that he knows very well, and also this horse returning to the track where he had his big breakout maiden win at,
Yeah.
honestly, because of the presence of this horse, I think that there is a way to get around journalism in the
Yeah.
Derby when you're going to bet the race. I really don't think it's impossible at all for sovereignty to be journalism. I think they're both, it's going to be interesting to see where they sit. Definitely, I think sovereignty could come from further back than journalism does, but
Yeah.
who knows if the pace is that hot? Sovereignty might be the horse that you want come Derby Day.
And we should say that Street Sense that was run last year at Churchill Downs Grade 3, every year there's a key race, it would seem like, or a productive race for these Derby preps, a race that produces a lot of really good horses. A couple of years ago was the Remsen. Remember, it was Sierra Leone and Dornoch and all these
Mhm.
great horses that came out of that race. Drum roll, please, and Domestic Product, and all these
Mhm.
horses that went on to win graded stakes races. Obviously, the Breeders' Cup Classic in the case of Sierra Leone, the Belmont Stakes in the case of Dornoch. Um, this year, it certainly seems to be the Street Sense because not only was it Sovereignty who won that race, Tistastic, who
Mhm.
is 7th on my list, 10th on yours, who won the Louisiana Derby, was second that day. And Sandman, who was second on my list and 4th on yours, was third place that day. So that race has produced 3 of our collective top 10 contenders. So that's a productive race. I mean, that race really
Sure.
did flatter itself in a lot of ways this year. And that seems to be the key race going back to last year and going, oh, that was the race where you had the real serious runners going.
Yeah, definitely. And this horse has been facing even tough competition. I'm pretty sure before that, he was facing a lot of these horses
Yeah.
too. A lot of them came out of the same common races and the Rebel as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So definitely interesting to
Very,
see.
yeah,
Yeah.
very good fields he's been facing all of the time. And yeah, because he lost to Prater the race before that as well. And we just saw that horse run in the, was the morning line favorite, or the post time favorite, I should say, in the Lexington. And I think it's a very, very good horse, just probably a one turn horse.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, but listen, let's talk about one other horse specifically, and then maybe we can talk about a horse on the bottom end of our list that we want to highlight.
Mhm.
And that is Sandman, because that's another one
Mhm.
that collectively is, second for me, fourth for you. I was just rewatching the Arkansas Derby, and it is remarkable how similar he looked to his father when Tappan won the Wood Memorial. And Tappan, the entire home stretch, is looking at the grandstands at Aqueduct and not paying a damn bit of attention to what's going on in the track. And then finally, in the last 100 yards, he straightens out, passes 4 horses, and wins the race. And if you watch that Arkansas Derby, Sandman's all over the place. I mean, he doesn't
Yeah.
know what the hell he's doing, but eventually, Jose Ortiz gets him straightened out and he goes. And he's a horse that's just got loads of talent and just needs to put it all together. And he finally did. And it seems like Jose Ortiz made a big difference getting aboard in that last race.
Definitely. And I think that obviously the Tappets, some of them are a bit, you know, like you described, not like head cases and that
They're
like you
just
said,
immature.
but immature, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that, Sandman is a horse that has always had a ton of talent and he did kind of put the pieces together. Obviously, in his last start, I know that he was lugging in a little bit or maybe lugging out. I'm not remembering
He did both.
specifically.
Rest assured, he did
Yeah, I
both.
think he was running a bit all over the place, but he got the job done and he's just that good that it didn't really matter much. So definitely that's why I have him so high on my list. And you would imagine that he's going to improve again in the Derby, but not
Yeah.
to jinx the horse. This is just my opinion. I love Sandman. I think he's a cool horse. I think that he has a good shot, but doesn't it concern you a little bit if this horse was looking all over the place at all these
Oh,
other days at the track come Derby Day with that crowd and everything? I'm not trying to obviously,
yeah.
I'm just saying, coming down the stretch, like who knows if he's going to get distracted by the crowd cheering during the
Yeah.
Derby. How we do
Yeah.
so. I don't know. I
Even
mean,
loading
I
into the
doubt it. I'm
starting
really
gate.
reaching for straws there, but not really. It's something I do
No.
kind of think about in terms of mental maturity.
It's a huge deal in terms of the walkover, the amount of people in the paddock singing "Old My Old Kentucky Home." You know, the which everybody knows the words to, unlike Maryland, My Maryland. And one of these days, we're just going to let Frank sing New York, New York up here. But listen, I digress about the songs of the Triple Crown. Maybe I should just do a whole video about that. But no, I agree with you that you're right about Sandman. You know, maybe they put, I know sometimes they'll put cotton in a horse's ears to try to, you know, just kind of help them, you know, really kind of keep everything, you know, out. But I agree with you. That is a problem. I mean, I remember there was, you know, Chad Brown had a horse early voting. That was a little bit of a head case loading into the gate. We even saw Sierra Leone have issues loading into the gate at that bluegrass last year, taking a long time and kind of being distracted and not liking the crowd. And so it 100% happens. And yeah, I mean, listen, Sandman's a little bit of a head case. Let's just be honest. I mean, a lot of these Tappets are until they get older. They usually take a little bit longer to mature, and that's okay. They're incredibly talented horses, and Tappet's a fantastic sire, but they tend to be best later in their 3-year-old campaigns, 4-year-old campaigns, 5-year-old campaigns, rather than precocious at 2 necessarily. And so, so he's going to be a big X factor, and he's also going to be weaving in between traffic coming from off the pace, much like Sovereignty in that case.
Definitely. I think it'll be interesting. I wonder if it'll be a repeat of a Forever Young Sierra Leone type of
yeah, you're right.
with those two. But yeah, I think that obviously he's a horse with a lot of talent, but those are the things that I kind of think about and put a little bit of weight into when I'm even making a list like this, just mental maturity and how he can handle the new surroundings. But yeah,
I agree.
Definitely a horse that I think I have on my list is East Avenue that you don't have. But I think we covered him. I think that he's going to be a major pace presence in the race. And honestly, if he gets loose and he gets modified, which I don't really see happening, but I think that he's going to play a role, and he has a good shot at hitting the board a lot more than, you know, some of these others, in my opinion. So I wanted to include him. And then Tistastic. He's a horse that I've never really we've talked about this, but definitely I was looking at the pedigree today and his past performances, and I really had to throw him on there. I think, you know, he's another one that's going to be pretty dangerous. And we both clearly like Grande a lot. I honestly should probably have him a bit higher, but I really wanted to put Baeza up a bit. But yeah, definitely. I like our lists.
I do too. I think Grande is a horse that, and Baeza kind of both fit the description of continually improving horses. I think Tappan Street kind of fits that description, though I do have more questions about his pedigree, being out of the Distorted Humor mare and being sired by Into Mischief, which is actually the exact same cross that Citizen Bull has as well, a Distorted Humor mare and sired by Into Mischief. And we saw some of the issues that he had. Tappan Street seems to be maybe a little bit more versatile than Citizen Bull in terms of being able to come from off the pace, got the mile and an 1/8 at Gulfstream Park. So, you know, checked a few more boxes in that regard, but still there are some questions there on pedigree, but a horse that has continually improved every time out. And yeah, Tistastic's a horse that I agree with you. I think, again, he's been forgotten about because that Louisiana Derby is kind of the first of the 100-point preps. And then all these subsequent 100-pointers are run after that. And people get excited about those subsequent winners. And Tistastic really hasn't done much wrong. We mentioned, you know, he finished second to Sovereignty in that street sense. He ran a decent enough race that day. You know, he knows how to run. You know, he seems like he's getting better at the right time. Steve Asmussen still searching for his first Kentucky Derby victory. And, you know, that's a horse that I think is maybe getting overlooked a little bit by some. And Burnham Square is a horse we both have at 8th, a winner of the Bluegrass, smaller connections. Ian Wilkes, the trainer. You had a horse that won the Holy Bull. Certainly that was flattered a little bit because he beat Tappan Street, who came back to win the Florida Derby. And Burnham Square's a horse that, again, the pedigree is not going to overwhelm you. Liam's Map out of a Scat Daddy mare, and yet that horse seems like he likes to run and really likes to get better with distance and come from off the pace. And it would seem like the 1.25 miles is not going to be a problem. And Wilkes has even said this horse can run all day.
Yeah, I actually like this one's pedigree a bit more than Tappan Street. I mean, it's just a personal preference. I do think under the right circumstances, Burnham Square should be able to get the distance. And obviously, I thought that looking at his, you know, past performances, he's put on a pretty strong campaign and seems to be working improving with each start as well. So
Yeah.
obviously last time out at Keeneland was very impressive. So really wanted to put him. He's one that I didn't even have in my top 10 prior, but looking at his overall body of work is pretty impressive, especially
Yeah.
compared to a few others. So yeah, and he's been facing some pretty tough fields and, like you said, came out of some pretty strong races. So definitely have him there. I mean, the Tappan Street, it was really just a pedigree standpoint. I didn't put him there. Obviously, if he
Yeah.
gets an ideal trip, it's not impossible. But
Yeah.
yeah.
The final horse that I will mention is Chunk of Gold, just because I always mention Chunk of Gold because he was worth $2,500 and he's sired by Preservationist, who's now standing either in Korea or Japan. I think, but he over in Asia. I think Korea actually. But Chunk of Gold, listen, he finished second to Tistastic in that Louisiana Derby, and he's just a cool horse. And he gives me Two Phils vibes, and I like that. I like Two Phils.
I love it. I mean,
And he should have won the Kentucky Derby.
If I could
But
add an 11th, it would probably be Coal Battle.
same
Yeah,
here.
we
I
have
love Coal Battle.
to.
Yeah.
If one of these, if there's an announcement, then Coal Battle is really, he's on my also eligible right now.
he's on mine as well. I love Coal Battle, love Lonnie Briley, love that he's sticking with Juan Vargas as the jockey, and he'll need to take another step forward, but he's a hard horse not to root for, and that human interest story, just if it doesn't make you cry, I don't know what will. So he's very, very emotional connections there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But listen, let's turn the page from the Derby to the Oaks. Talk about the Oaks top 10. And again, you and I, listen, we have some similarities. We have some differences here in terms of where we went with a couple of horses and where we kind of our eyes are. But what can't be denied is the top two are the top two. Quietside and Good Cheer. I have Quietside up top, Good Cheer second. You have Good Cheer up top, Quietside second. These two, Kaylie, would seem to be the two. And then there's a little bit of a gap to everybody else. And then it's a little bit more of your personal preference over anything else.
Yeah, I completely agree. These are the dominant two out of the group. Definitely, I think Quietide's going to be a better bet come Oaks Day. She's probably going to be the best bet, depending on how she draws. And I think that she reached kind of a new dimension with Jose Ortiz aboard. And clearly they click pretty well. And when she doesn't face any trouble, she's able to get the job done. She's improving a lot, and I really like her from a pedigree standpoint, a physical I mean, I haven't seen her up close. I don't think I went into the paddock that day that she was at Saratoga. Wish I did, but I am excited to see her up close at Churchill and see how she looks, as well as Good Cheer, obviously. But yeah, these two really definitely tower over the rest of them. But yeah, we should be expecting a work from Quietside. Last I checked was this morning. She hasn't worked since the fantasy, so probably just going to keep an eye on that Wednesday, Thursday. I'm sure all good, definitely routine, but just going to keep an eye out for that next work. And Good Cheer, she worked last on April 9th, so she's at Churchill. Obviously, we saw that video. But yeah, these two definitely look like they tower over the rest for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, very good horses, both of them. And, Quietside showed, certainly can sit from a little off the pace. Good Cheer can come from a little off the pace. So we talked about how there's going to be a little bit of speed in this race in all likelihood with horses like 5G, with a horse like Early On, with a horse like Lucara. Some of these, a horse like Simply Joking. These horses all want to be pretty forward. Even a horse like Fondly has got some pretty good early speed as well. You mentioned the horse working really well. You have her 8th. I have her 3rd. Bless the Broken's a horse that I just think is getting better at the right time. And this just feels like a horse that is going to be a very good bet come Kentucky Oaks Day. That she's going to be a big price. She's working well. She's coming out of that Bourbonette Oaks, running at Jeff, on the Turfway Park. We've seen that Turfway to that synthetic to dirt transition to be effective from Turfway to Churchill. I just think she's getting better at the right time, and she's one who I just think is going to be an outstanding bet, can come from off the pace. I think there's a fair amount of pace in this race. I think she should like the distance. So she's one that I have pretty high, maybe a little too high, but I wanted to give her a nod as a horse that I think is going to be an outstanding value, at least on Kentucky Oaks Day.
Yeah, I don't think so, because if you really think about it, if she draws well, imagine she's gonna bring pretty good value if you use her in a try or a super, and
Yeah,
it's really not, I don't view that as unlikely in the
yeah,
Oaks. I think that, like you said, she's really improving. She just put in a pretty good work at Keeneland, like we were talking about earlier, and she could be peaking at the right time as well. So she's one that definitely, I like that you have her third. It's definitely a sneaky play as a long shot, or a horse to use underneath come Oaks Day. But
yeah.
yeah, definitely have her eighth on my list. She's a filly that we both have always really liked, and if it does rain, we know that that moves her up. That moves her up even
It
more.
does.
Not like
Yeah.
she's not great over a fair track, but on an off track, might move her up a bit more as well. So
No, it absolutely does. And a horse you have third on your list is one who was really making up ground on Lacara in that Ashland, which is Take Charge Milady for trainer Kenny McPeak. And that one, was trying to make an inside move and was, like I said, was really the only one making up ground on Lacara that day. Certainly seems like maybe a little bit of a sneaky play in terms of maybe not the greatest trip in that race. But I think a
mhm.
horse that is, again, was showing her best stride late, which is kind of what you want to see when projecting about stretching out to a new distance.
Yeah, and this is another one that I think is really improving at the right time. In the honeybee, she got, I think, yeah, in the honeybee, a lot of horses had really bad trips that day, and
Yeah, that's
she
true.
was one of them. And last time out, it was obviously way better, but still not that great. And I think that the way that she was able to close into the pace was pretty impressive. And she actually is really nice physically as well. She impressed me that day. It looks like she even grew in the last few months as well and looks stronger. So she's one that I think can be pretty sneaky come Oaks Day as well, and is really improving and impressed me last time out. And I think that she might have even ran the best race that day, even though
Yeah.
she was second, but she really impressed me. So
Well, one of the horses that I will let you give a little bit of a dissertation about is your number 5 horse that you moved up from last week to from 10 to 5, and that is Tenma for Bob Baffert. I think both of us were underwhelmed by her effort in the Santa Anita Oaks, but you went back and watched some of her other races and you kind of started to try to find some things there. I'll let you talk about it a little bit more, but you kind of warmed back up to her as a potential play in the Kentucky Oaks this year.
yeah, she's a funny one. Actually, in the beginning, I think I even had her like first when we first started doing like
Yeah,
before the
first or
prep.
second, you had a really high. Yeah.
Yeah, before when the preps just started, she was one
Yeah.
that obviously at that time you were going based off of sales and pedigree and connections, and she was one that stood out to me on checked all those boxes. But and I thought it was going, she was one that I had very high on my list until last time. I think that I read too much into that low buyer that she got that day, and I went back and watched a lot of her replays. And I think that she's a filly that really just needs to not have any trouble around her. She just needs to be up front and not be bothered, and not necessarily on the lead, but just not be put in difficult positions. And I know that that kind
Yep.
of contradicts itself because she has been in some small fields where she has had just dream trips where she pulled away from the field, but also in that race with it was just three of them where she got, I think, her
Yeah,
best
with
figure.
Cipriani and yeah.
Yeah, where she that didn't really, I was very impressed with her that day, even though it was a small field. And then
Yeah.
after that, last time out, I mean, she didn't have the cleanest of trips. And I also think that maybe the track was playing a little differently that day. I don't really I She looked uncomfortable to me
Yeah.
last time out. I know that she got the job done, but she just did not look like
She looked
herself. And
uncomfortable
I
going
don't
into the first turn because I remember her head was cocked one way, and yeah, she didn't look. You're right, she
well,
didn't get the easiest trip, and it wasn't.
and
Yeah,
yeah, in my opinion, I think that they were holding her back a little bit. If you look at it, like she
yeah.
was gonna go right up to the lead that day, but she was held back, and I don't really think that she liked that. So I think that she's a filly that just likes to get the right type of trip, and I think that if she does, she's a big X factor going into the Oaks from a pedigree perspective, from a connection standpoint, and also because she's another one that I think there's more potential than there are negatives going in here. That one slow race doesn't really turn me off when she's
Yeah.
been great before that. And who knows, maybe a large field and different setups and pace dynamics could actually help her out. So she's one
Yeah.
that I think is pretty interesting to have in the top 5, but I do understand that last figure isn't that great. So
Yeah, listen, I mean, but sometimes you got to dig into that stuff to find potential value because a lot of people are going to be off of her now based upon that last figure. So, a horse that also has a rather low last figure is a horse I have number 6 on my list. You have number 9, and that's
mhm.
Fondly for trainer Graham Motion. I just like this filly a lot. I think that number is a little deceiving. We saw a horse like early on come out of that race and improve her speed figure 10 points in the next race. So I wonder how slow that race really was. And again, that was that unusual mile and an eighth one turn race or mile and a 16th, I should say, one turn race at Colonial on a day where, yeah, speed was pretty good. But finally, I trust Graham Motion. And that's what it comes down to. The way that you feel about Dwayne Lucas and American Promise is a little bit how I feel about Fondly and Graham Motion. I just trust Graham Motion. He's going to put his horses in a good spot. He's going to train them up properly. He's got this one at Far Hills, and he's going to be, he's been training her great. And she's a lightly raced filly. She's only raced twice. She won her maiden, and then she went and won the Virginia Oaks. I mean, that's impressive to be able to do that in 2 races. And she's one who's encountered trouble, but in her maiden debut, she encountered some issues, was really impressive. She was able to hold off a horse like early on in her in that Virginia Oaks victory. I just think she's upward potential. And she's got untapped potential, would only be her 3rd career start. But I'm going to trust a horseman like Graham Motion in this sort of a spot. And I just think she might, again, get overlooked because she hasn't run in a while. And people are going to see that speed figure, I think it was a 69 that day, and go, I don't know. I'd rather put my money elsewhere. I think she's sitting on a big race.
Yeah, I think she got like a 70 that day. And
yeah,
like
maybe a 70. Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
you mentioned, she's at Fair Hills, and I think obviously she's working over that course that's probably going to help her muscle, working up to the Oaks, and then he's probably going to ship her out there. She's one that has a lot of upside, like you said, very lightly raced, and I think that figure's a little light too, regardless of what exactly it was, because it's not a typical configuration at all so I'm not really reading into that too much. She's one with a lot of upside that I agree can provide some value underneath come Oaks Day. And also you have a really great trainer working her up to it. So she's pretty interesting.
And 2 horses we'll talk about before we end it up today. One is Lucara, the other is 5G. Kind of pretty similar horses in that they both like to go to the front end. Lucara, we saw just go gate to wire in that bluegrass. That was a race that you had said, listen, Mark Cassey was getting this one ready for that. And she certainly looked ready for it, putting away Take Charge Milady and Muhima, among others. 5G was a horse I think you and I both thought a lot more of actually after her defeat to Quietside. Because she really dug in and fought after she got past. Once she got headed, she didn't give in. And she's a nice filly as well. We have them both right around the same area, kind of maybe that second tier of contenders, but both present some upside. It's just a matter of, can they win another way? Can they win by rating a little bit? Do they need the lead, and which one of them gets to the front? I think that's going to be a big question mark for both of them come the first Friday in May.
Definitely, and I think you can even rank Lucara with the top fillies in this group. I think that she showed a lot last time out, that she was working up to that for a long time.
Yeah.
And that was the first day that I think she went just right out to the lead as well. And I think that really helped her, and she put on a really big performance that day. So she definitely jumped up. She's always been a classy filly and one that we both thought highly of. I think she sat in 4th maybe the entire year for me. She's
been about as steady as everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that she's pretty good. She's a classy filly. She seems to be really improving at the right time as well. And I think that she could even surprise come Oaks Day. She's pretty nice. So definitely like that we both have her in 4th. And then Ballerina d'Oro is one that I kind of, not to jump around, that I put pretty low. pretty low recently. I used to have her. I just really didn't love her win at Aqueduct last
Yeah.
time out, and I, you know, I think that if she gets a hot pace, then that's probably going to help her out a bit. And obviously the distance as well. But she ran a low figure over that distance last time out that kind of went up
Yeah.
against, I mean, a big difference from the Demoiselle to now. So I don't know if
Yeah.
she's regressing. I don't know what it is, but she
Yeah.
she was lugging in. She has issues with her lead. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just have a few questions with her. I think she's a nice, classy filly, but she didn't
Well,
really put on. I was kind of confused by what was happening in the stretch with her last
yeah,
time
I
out. She
think
was just lugging in, and yeah.
a couple of things I think to point out. One is, remember, she's originally a turf filly for Chad. She was on the
Mhm.
turf in her first two starts.
Exactly.
Chad said she worked so well on the dirt that she deserved a shot to run in the Demoiselle, and she ran a big race, finishing second to Muhima that day. And then she ran it third in the Devotedale, which again came back strong with Lacara finishing second and coming back to win the Ashland. So, then she goes back and wins the Gazelle in her final prep. But I agree with you. Visually, it was not particularly impressive. At the top of the stretch, I thought she was going to win that race by 3-4 lengths over
Mhm.
early on. And she just kind of didn't want to go by. And Dylan Davis had to use every single ounce of his strength to get her by early on. And yeah, the speed figure came back at 79, and you go, okay. It wasn't the sort of effort that gives you a ton of confidence that she's going to run well in the Kentucky Oaks. And I think her best surface probably is on the grass ultimately, and maybe she probably goes back to the turf after this. So,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It could be. Obviously it wasn't enough to take her completely off. Obviously, if she's
Yeah,
on her game and she doesn't have any issues in the stretch, she could be pretty dangerous with that pace. But yeah, I wasn't really in love with what I saw last time out at all. So,
yeah. Listen, it was. Listen, we're gonna have more lists. Never fear. We're gonna have more lists. We're gonna have a revised top 10. Kaylie, I know you're working on your. I just released my Oaks top 5 video today. I just checked while we were doing this. 7,300 people have already watched it. Are you kidding me? 7,300 people haven't ever listened to me before in my life, and I taught college classes for 15 years. And so, listen, that's great. If you haven't watched yet, make sure to go over and watch. You're gonna have your top 5 for the Oaks coming out probably next week, right?
yeah, definitely. And I've loved seeing your updated top fives each week. So I'm excited to do my own. Hopefully I can live up to it. Yeah,
No, it'll be great. And we got to give a huge
yeah,
thanks to our creative department at NYRA Bets for putting it all together. I mean, you and I do the voiceovers, and we send them the clips, but they put it all together, make it look really classy and really nice. And it's a really
looks
nice
great.
video if you haven't checked it out yet. So make sure to do that. And
Yes.
you get to, if nothing else, you get to hear to some great stretch calls from Frank Mirmati or Matt Dinnerman or whomever. So like I said, a lot of fun for those. But Kaylie, next time I see you, we're going to be at the airport going to Kentucky. And we're going to be having some great content down at Keeneland. We're going to be doing a preview of the Double Dog Dare, Just FYI, Tarifa, Candied. Hello. We're going to be talking about that. That's going to be good. And then we're going to be doing some late pick fives. That's right.
Mhm.
If you want to get into some late pick 5 action, we're going to be doing some late pick 5s for Friday and Saturday's card. Going to be doing one of those as a live stream, maybe, so you can comment along, hang out with us, let us know your thoughts, give us your tickets, tell us where your singles are, tell us where we're wrong, you're right. Hey, love to hear from it. So, Kaylie, this has been a lot of fun. Can't wait to keep doing more of this with you. Can't wait to get some great morning workout videos with you. That's going to be a lot of fun. See some of these horses up close and in person, and just be able to give the folks even more insight when we do these types of videos moving forward.
Exactly. So excited for all of that. And like you said, all of the handicapping content surrounding Keeneland. I love betting Keeneland. I'm so excited for that. So next week and even the following, well, this week and next week
Yep.
is going to be great in terms of all that content. So very excited.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're watching the Keelan feed, I'm sure you'll see one or both of us meandering in and out of the camera shots at different points. And so you can tell us to get off the screen. Listen, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. For Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a great and profitable day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it's now post time.